All right. Now, Kenyans should prepare for tough times should Parliament endorse some of the proposed taxation measures by President Uhuru Kenyatta meant to raise more revenue. The hardest hit will be consumers of kerosene who will feel pain at the pump through the anti-adulteration levy that shall be charged at the rate of 18 shillings per litre. Now, the move will see the price of kerosene to that of diesel harmonized at the pump. And as Patrick Amimo reports, mobile phone subscribers will also pay more for airtime and data services.
National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich held a meeting with members of the National Assembly Finance Committee ahead of debate on the President's reservations on Finance Bill 2018. Members scrutinized some of the proposed taxation measures by the President and how they'll affect Kenyans. President Kenyatta says the price difference between kerosene and diesel is the main motivation for fuel adulteration that causes pollution and damage to vehicle engines. Consequently, the President wants the price of kerosene and diesel harmonized. The new levy shall be at a rate of 18 shillings per litre and shall be paid by the importer.
In terms of public participation, really, ERC did their best, they presented to us, but we were not convinced. That's why it did not land in the bill.
My question then is,
to fix this problem is just to have there should be no price wage between diesel and kerosene. And that is exactly what Tanzania has done.
The President wants value-added tax on petroleum products levied at 8%, but dated to 1st September 2018. This will earn government an estimated 17 billion shillings by the end of June 2019.
The output tax will be taxed at 8% because we want to lower the consumer price, but the input tax will be at 16%.
we are not being truthful about it, that the VAT is only on the distribution. It's the whole chain of fuel.
The President also wants a 12% excise duty on fees charged for money transfer services by mobile phone service providers. Telephone and internet data services shall be charged excise duty at the rate of 15%. Excise duty on fees charged for money transfer services by banks, agencies and other financial service providers shall be charged at 20%. These new tax measures, if implemented, will raise 7.6 billion shillings to fill the revenue shortfall. In order to support the housing pillar of the government's Big Four plan, the President has introduced a contributory scheme where both the employee and employer would contribute to the National Housing Development Fund. Consequently, Uhuru has proposed that an employer shall pay to the National Housing Fund 1.5% of the employee's monthly basic salary and a similar contribution from the employee, provided that the sum of the employer and employee contributions shall not exceed 5,000 shillings monthly.
Housing, transport and housing were there. The HOTU, represented by Atwoli, was there. In fact, it is out of that meeting that they raised it from 0.5 to 1.5.
The President has proposed an excise duty of 20 shillings per kilogram on sugar confectionery, including white chocolate. The National Assembly had dropped this item. Uhuru has proposed that winnings in betting, lotteries and games be taxed at 20%, while prize competition will attract 15% tax, down from 35% that had been agreed by Parliament. Kenyans will be watching keenly to see whether members of the National Assembly will endorse the President's proposals or they'll flex their muscles and exercise their independence by marshalling two-thirds majority and overturn the President's proposals. Patrick Amimo, KTN News, Parliament.
All right, so right now I'd like us to cruise over to a city centre studio and talk to senior parliamentary reporter Patrick Amimo just to tell us what we expect to play on the floor of the House this morning and of course later on in the afternoon during the special sittings. Amimo, good morning and thank you so much for joining us here on KTN News Centre. So what do you expect to play on the floor of the House in the morning and also in the afternoon, owing to the fact that there's still division amongst members of Parliament whether to support the proposals or whether to reject?
Thank you, Brenda. This is the day that Kenyans will be watching keenly to see whether members of Parliament have been walking the talk and or they were playing to the public gallery. Because before, when they went for recess after on August 30th, after passing this finance bill and taking it to the President, there were certain amendments in this, which they proposed, especially the VAT on fuel, which took effect immediately on 1st September. Members had said that they wanted it postponed for 2 more years until 2020 for it to be implemented. But then the VAT Act 2013 had set the operation date to be 1st September. That's why Kenyans found themselves paying 16% VAT. And when the bill landed on the president's desk last week, we saw him to sign it and return it to Parliament with memorandum, where he proposed several amendments and also introduced several tax measures which will generate revenue. In fact, the president criticized members of the National Assembly for not showing leadership and also when they passed the budget and denied his government some of that revenue. According to him, about 67.5 billion shillings was missing in this particular. There was a deficit of 67.5 billion shillings, which is said members of Parliament and the National Assembly had not really shown leadership, and that's why he had to return this bill to them and told them that they have to implement his proposals to ensure that the budget 2018-2019 financial year budget is up to date. And that's why we see today members on Tuesday, they had an opportunity to get the president's memorandum and get to know what he really wants done. Yesterday, we saw the Finance Committee and that of Budget and Appropriations go through these particular estimates to review the budget. We'll be having a supplementary budget. Remember, only having passed today's budget in the 3.07 trillion budget on mid-June, and now this time round, hardly 3 months away, we are having a first supplementary budget because figures could not add, and Kenyans are complaining that they are burdened by the tax. So we've seen members of Parliament out there claim that they'll come and oppose the president's proposals, because what has happened is that there is concern that perhaps Parliament has ended up being an appendage of the executive and or State House. That's where the decisions are being made. Members of Parliament say they want to exercise their independence, but it appears probably that's now when Kenyans will see whether that will carry the day and or not. We saw we saw the parliamentary leadership. They had a parliamentary group meeting. Those in Jubilee side went to State House Nairobi, where in a meeting that was chaired by the president, where he whipped members to support his proposals. We saw the opposition National Super Alliance, chaired by Raila Odinga, to whip his members to support these particular proposals, though that meeting at Orange House was not fully attended. We've seen the ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi say that he supports some of these, especially the VAT, 8% taxation on VAT, but he's opposed to some of those taxation measures which he feels will overburden Mwananchi out there, and is called maybe for a dissolution of the cabinet, and or even he said that the government should resign if it had come to this particular position. Yesterday we saw Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka urge members of the Wiper Party in the National Assembly to support the president in this bill, and also to ensure that he realizes his Big Four agenda and carries his legacy. But then this testing will in the pudding will be today as morning when members sit. But again, on that particular 2/3 provision, it is a tricky situation, because according to Parliament rules and regulations, only 50 members of Parliament, those are the ones that constitute a quorum. So should the House have 50 members, then it will be considered to be well constituted and ready to transact business. And so in such a situation, if a question is put maybe that alters those proposals of the president, it will require 2/3 majority to veto that particular proposition. But in case there's nothing to that effect, it will be a simple majority. So out of these 50 members of Parliament, if say 30 are of the view that okay, we agree with the president, then the president's amendments will sail through without any difficulty. It doesn't require like the strict 233 members of Parliament to be in plenary for it to pass. It's only a simple majority. Say out of 50, maybe you can even get even 20. And in this scenario, it's only by acclamation, because if it appears there's no much opposition, then it's just the vote will be done by acclamation. But in an event that an amendment is introduced which will alter fundamentally the president's proposals, then members will go to vote. So that is the situation that is obtaining, and as has been the tradition, some members of Parliament have this habit of skipping session. Probably we might see some skip Parliament and claim to be engaged in other activities, because even traditionally the House has not been full since there's no parliament that has been able to attract the full membership, unless it is a matter that is touching on members' welfare, say something to do with their salaries, maybe something to do with the CDF. That is the subject that generates a lot of passion, and we see a full house. But if it's matters that is not really affecting members of parliament personally, then we see the attendance in the house is always not full. So today we'll be watching to see whether that house will be fully constituted, will be full to capacity, and or we'll witness a scenario where only about maybe a handful of about 70 members will turn up. And if that be the case, then if the majority in that particular out of the 70 are in support of the president's bill, then the president will carry the day. And if that be the case, those proposals, the effective date will be immediate as soon as the president appends his signature. So assuming that this Thursday members sit and pass the president's proposals, then I expect probably the speaker, after they make the necessary amendments to that particular bill to comply with from the government printer, then the president could assent his signature probably by over the weekend and or latest Monday, because there will be no other opposition and the government is eager to get these particular funds. So that is the scenario that we are witnessing out there, and Kenyans should not maybe be very, very optimistic, thinking maybe that their members of parliament might side with them, because, as I said, raising 2/3 is being a Herculean task in our National Assembly and also the Senate. So it's something that has been happening in the previous parliament. It's not only the 12th parliament. So it appears the president also seems to know this particular thing, that it's very difficult for members to raise 2/3. That's why whenever bills go to him at times, he decides to amend them and introduce through a memorandum, and then at the end of the day, we've seen the president's proposals always carry the day. So it won't be different this time around, unless maybe members of parliament change and be a different breed, and to see them marshal the 2/3 and maybe overturn the president's proposal. Then it will be a historic moment in Kenya, in the history of Kenyan parliament. Brenda.
Right, that is a senior parliamentary reporter, Patrick Amimo, giving us latest details of what we need to expect.